Hey, everyone, it's Sleepy Reader, aka Damien. This is going to be my comic book countdown. I'm not going to do the look inside and the haul. I'm just low on time today. We're going on a little pre Christmas holiday. So I thought I'd just pump this out there. I had 11 comics that I read this past week that were new books. I also had to catch up on a number of them that I'd gotten behind on during that period when I had COVID and asthma and stuff. So the one thing is, last week I mentioned how all of the books I had seemed to be horror in some fashion, and in some fashion, about 8 out of the 11 of these are horror. I'm not sure what's going on. I mean, a number of them are other genres too, but just with a horror element. So. But horror seems to be the theme running through my pull list, which at Christmas time still feels kind of weird. And speaking of horror, up at number 11, I'm putting Leonid the Vampire, A Christmas for Crows. And I really wanted to like this. I liked the previous Leonid the Vampire one shot. And this is written by Mike Mignola without any co-writers, I believe, working with the artist Rachel Arano. And then the last few pages have an epilogue with art by Mignola himself. But the story just didn't quite track. It seemed to jump about. And it had some fun elements in it, like these crows that put on suits and come to life, so to speak, or become anthropomorphic for a brief while, and then they all fly off again. I guess it's called Christmas for Crows. Maybe this needs a reread, and then I'll appreciate it more. It's not a terrible comic, but it was frustrating that I couldn't figure it all out. In at number 10 is the Love Everlasting issue number 5. And I am grown really impatient and kind of bored with this comic. I mean, I kind of want to know what's going to happen next. And there's some hints here that there's some things that are different than we might have imagined. Not that we really could figure out, why this woman was living through romance comics scenario after romance comics scenario. But now we kind of understand a specific person who's supposedly doing it to her. And that was intriguing, but other than that, it's kind of tedious. So I love Elsa Chartier's artwork, but I kind of think these days that about 3 issues of something with really great art, but writing that I don't care for, will carry me through. And then after that, I need something more than just the artwork to keep me going. So I'm debating. I think I'll probably drop this from my pull list, and I can always pick up issues later, right? If I hear it gets really good. I am just kind of interested in what's going on, but I, at the same time, don't feel like going through the long process that it may be to find that out. This book at Night Club ranked at number 9 by me in my highly subjective rankings and my enjoyment. I did enjoy this book quite a bit. I'd say everything from this book upward, I had a good time reading it. I think this is a story of vampires, and it looks like there's a vampire police officer who wants to create a group of vampires to help him fight crime, but I'm not sure if that's where this is going yet. It's hard to tell. But it's definitely interesting. It just felt, what's the right word? It just felt like it was all just kind of set up. So we'll see where it goes. I enjoyed it. I had fun reading it. It's only $2. Well worth it when you compare it to other $5 and $4 comics. I'm definitely sticking with this. And since it's Mark Millar, it's probably just a 5-issue series. So we'll see where that goes. And then in at one I was really excited for, and so maybe my high expectations affect this, but I put it number 8, the first issue of Danger Street by Tom King and Fornes. What's Fornes' first name? Jorge Fornes and Dave Stewart on color. I have to say I was not blown away by Fornes's art. It was fine. And Tom King's, he's setting something up here, but he's turning all these characters to me that were kind of fun or exciting from the first issue special series way back in the early 70s or mid 70s, I guess. He's making them kind of dullish, I think, bringing them down to reality a bit. There's Warlord, Travis. What was Travis's last name? Travis the Warlord. So I'm mildly intrigued. I do like it's on an almost newsprint style paper, which was kind of cool. And I'm most intrigued, I think, by the appearance of Dr. Fate's mask. So there's some interesting things here. Looks like there's some commentary on political newscasters, the ones that are more opinion than politics. This all could shape into something more interesting than it is in the first issue. I'm not sure. But I was all excited. I mean, there are 3 Jack Kirby creations that never got used in the first issue specials, including the Dingbats of Danger Street, which is what it's named after. So I don't know if I were expecting something the reverse of, if I was expecting kind of a low key story, maybe I would have thought it was a great low key story, or the beginning of what might possibly be a good low key story. In at number 7, I put Dark Ride. I read all 3. This is Dark Ride issue 3. I read all 3 issues catching up just yesterday, and it was a lot of fun to read. In some ways, though, it just feels like it's just a horror story, if that makes sense. Like, there's not really layers to it, and I feel like Joshua Williamson wants more layers. He wants us to care about the family dynamics and such, but I think it might be best if it were just a 6-issue series. And I hope to be proven wrong, because I don't really know what the plan is, but I assumed it was planned for a longer term kind of thing. The art is fun and works well, and I really like the first issue and the way the first issue gave us the wrong idea of who was the main character of the story. That was very cool. In at number 6, ranked 6 for me in my reading, was Lord of the Jungle. Absolutely hate this cover. It's by Philip Tan, I think. I'm reading the signature on the cover right. And he is the artist who's working with Frank Miller on Ronin 2. But and that work there is pretty good, but it's just a weird and unattractive cover. The artwork inside is really good, but with terribly muddy color. Benito Gallego, probably, I don't know how you pronounce his name. His artwork really evokes both John Buscema and Joe Kubert in a really pleasing way. And Dan Jurgens, as I think I said on the first issue, and I continue to feel Dan Jurgens has a really nice take on both Tarzan's origin and where he ends up, and kind of cleaning up some of the racism that was built into. You can't get rid of it all, really, but cleaning up some of the racism that was built into the original. And it's a well-told story, a nice riff on what you might call the Tarzan mythos. I mean, I've read the origin of Tarzan several times, both at Marvel and then at DC, and then I think I read the original novel at least twice, once as a kid and once in my 20s. And so I really like, even though it's all very familiar to me, that the take on it makes it less familiar, makes it something new to read, and a new take on material that's familiar to me, which makes it interesting. I have never read Lovecraft's Unknown Kadath. I think it's called The Dream of Unknown Kadath, the actual original story. the dream quest of unknown Kadath. But I'm finding this a very mesmerizing story in comics. I love the character's relationship with cats. I don't fully understand exactly what the relationship between dreams and reality and other things is, although I vaguely know that there's a series of Lovecraft stories in which dreams are the world of dreams is really just as real as the waking world. So this is a kind of quest through a landscape, and there are little elements and things I don't fully understand, but overall I understand enough, and I'm swept up in the kind of dreamlike world of it all, and really appreciating the way they have kind of put an extra emphasis on the cat aspect of the dreams, and always sticking with their Little Nemo intro to every issue. So I'm quite charmed by Unknown Kadath. I put that in at number 5, so there were a lot of good books this time around. Another good one is Hell to Pay. This feels in a way like a classic Vertigo kind of comic, except maybe with there was something a little more relaxed about narratives in Vertigo comics as I remember them, and this has that more sort of, the current writers in comics are a little slicker in their tight plotting. So it feels like the plotting is very tight. There's not any extra room to breathe here, which is both good and bad, but mostly good, I guess. What might keep this down for me and not reaching a number one spot in my pull list or my subjective little pile here is the artwork. I'm just not a fan, I'm sorry, of Will Sliney's art. The coloring does not help. I think it's not just like a stylistic thing. I think it's actually like the poses of the characters don't appeal to me. It's weird. It just pushes back against my brain, the artwork and the color to an extent. Maybe a different colorist could make this feel less plastic, if you will. I don't know. He's not a bad artist, and it's I feel bad sort of saying it, but it just hampers my liking of this a little bit. This has lots of cool stuff. I feel kind of emotionally involved with the characters already quickly. It might have been kind of a cheap move in a way. How much do I give away? But in some of the things they did that have caught my sympathy. But anyway, the characters are definitely caught between different evils in a way that is very effective for me. And it's very imaginative. They say they plan to do many miniseries within this Shrouded College backdrop. The Shrouded College is sort of enslaved these two people to search out the coins from hell, and things just go bad from there, in a sense. So supposedly the Shrouded College is removing evil from the world, but are they evil too? I'm quite curious about that. But coming in at number 3 on my list, on my countdown list, even more effective in catching the humanity in the fantasy story has been the story Specs, which at some level is a simple, wish. You get a magic MacGuffin that allows you to make wishes, and then you better be careful what you wish for because it's not going to go the way you planned. But writer David Bower very effectively weaves in issues of high school and of being gay in a high school, or being the only black person at a high school. In fact, that is super powerful, and also is kind of interesting and artful the way David Bower writes it, so that the best friend of the black character keeps not understanding the full weight of racism that's coming down on his black friend, who he loves secretly because he's gay. Anyway, so it's a nice it's a nice. I really appreciate a fantasy story that can delve into real human issues at the same time. The combination of the two things makes both more powerful for me. So I'm really quite a fan of Specs. I also feel like it is ultimately should be a shorter story. If it goes on too long, I'm not sure if it can bear the weight of that. But as a, let's say it was a 6 or 10 issue series, I think it would be very, very powerful. But there are two more I had even more fun with, and they're both thanks to Mr. Maxwell Prince. Art Brut is apparently a reprinted and just very slightly changed series from many years ago, but the team of Maxwell Prince and Martin Morazzo are now very well known because of Ice Cream Man. And I had a great time reading this story of this crazy man who can solve crimes based on art and actually go into art. And it was really well done. To me, it had kind of shades of one of the wackier Grant Morrison type stories. We'll see if it continues to remind me of that as the rest of the story unfolds. I guess this was originally done in either 4 or 6 issues and then printed as a trade, but I'm assuming there would be room for more stories in this world if it sells well this time around. Very good colors here too. A different colorist than works on Ice Cream Man, and I really like the colors here. And then at number 1, as it often is, it was Ice Cream Man. It doesn't come out very often anymore. This is number 33, but this was an incredibly good 2-timeline story. One, the story that the Maxwell Prince claims he would have, the happy story Maxwell Prince would have liked to have written, and then the kind of unhappy, depressed story that he is compelled and really does write. But of course, in this issue, he writes both stories. But it was a lot of fun and felt very true to life. And so, anyway, the only sign of the Ice Cream Man, I think, was just this one panel where we see him off to the side eating ice cream. So even though he's on the cover, he's not really in this comic. Yeah, I'll be rereading a lot of Ice Cream Man, I think. I'm impressed that I still really enjoy it. There is a certain Chaos in Comics who points out that this just keeps repeating this grim view of the world, but somehow it still keeps working for me. It keeps coming up with new inventive ways to attack things, and does continue to make me worry that that Mr. Prince is possibly very, very depressed. Hopefully this is cathartic and he's less depressed because he's doing the Ice Cream Man. It's kind of cathartic for me most of the time. Some of the issues are not cathartic and too depressing perhaps, and others are cathartic. And I guess horror is a cathartic, generally speaking, way to deal with emotional things in a fantastical way. You kind of get that catharsis through being scared like crazy. Anyway, thanks for hanging in there with my umming and erring. It seems to be worse lately, and maybe it's post-COVID. I don't know. But I will be back soon, maybe with a haul, since I didn't have time to do that right now. I have picked up a lot of books that I could show in a haul. Talk to y'all later. Cheers.